Well, I thought it would be fun to make some loaf pans for the dolls in the dollhouse so they can make some bread. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. All right, so we're going to start by drawing our scoring and cutting lines out on our piece of cardstock. Now this is a piece of white, kind of a light, medium weight cardstock, I guess would probably be what you would call it at the craft store. This is one of the ones that's just in one of those big packages that most of the craft stores carry. So I've got my see-through ruler. You can use any ruler that you can measure accurately with. And I'm going to measure over 1/4 of an inch. And I'm using a nice sharp pencil to draw my line. Erase my mistake line there. And now I'm going to measure over 3/8 of an inch from this line. I want to make sure that I am staying nice and straight. And now I need to go over another 1/4 inch. I will try to have a diagram on the blog post that will show you all these measurements. But what we've drawn is, this is the side of our loaf pan, the bottom, and the other side. So now let's go to this. We're going to turn it this direction, and we are going to measure a 1/4 inch up from this edge of our paper. And then I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch from that line and draw another line, and then a 1/4 inch up. And I am crooked, so I need to make sure that I am staying nice and straight. Now this part here, that is going to be throwaway. We're not going to keep that. So let's just use a pair of scissors and cut this off. I'm working on my self-healing mat because it will provide a little bit of give. And I'm going to cut off that waste part. Now, I'm going to bring my ruler back. And I have just a small ball stylus or dotting tool, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to draw along those pencil lines that I just made with this dotting tool. This is scoring the paper so that it will fold a lot easier. And if you're brave, you could just do the scoring and not draw the pencil lines, but I figure for one thing, I want you guys to see what I'm doing, but I also want to be able to see what I'm doing, and I'm going to be painting this, so it won't matter if there's some pencil mark. I'm just going to work on top of this today. So I have a small pair of scissors, and I'm going to go, well, first let's fold. Almost forgot that part. It is easier to do before we do any cutting. All right, so now those lines are all folded. I am going to cut diagonally from the corner to where those lines intersect. And this little self-healing mat, by the way, I picked up at Dollar Tree over in their Crafters Square stuff. Even if you don't do any sewing, any kind of crafting where you're using a knife to cut things, this is really handy to have. And the same thing at the craft store costs a lot more. All right, now we are going to get some glue out. I'll put my glue right in front of me. That's why I can't find it. I'm going to put the glue off to the side on my tile. And I have a toothpick. I'm going to turn this over so that I'm working on a solid colored surface. I'm going to put glue on the tabs that are on the end pieces because they are going to the inside of our loaf pan. And I thought we'd make the loaf pan today, and we'll talk about how to make it look new and how to make it look aged. And then next week we'll make a loaf of bread, and then we'll probably make some things with some of the loaves of bread. But I thought this would be kind of a fun little set of posts to do. All right, now this up. I'm going to go ahead and cover the end with glue. And if our tacky glue sits on the paper for just a few seconds, it will become more tacky and more able to hold on. And this is pretty small, so I doubt that I have anything that I can clamp it with. Oh good, the weed whacking guy is going to come. He just got done mowing, so I'm going to really quickly glue this end and turn the camera off. And when we come back, this will be dry and we'll be ready to go to our next step. All right, my glue has dried enough that we are going to put a coat of gray paint. This is just Rainy Day by Anita's. Plaid didn't send me any grays in that group of paints that I got from them, so I just went into my stash. And I am going to put probably 2 coats of gray paint. Whoa, my hands are shaking. I just got back in from a walk, so I want to get this done. So I am going to coat the inside and the outside of this little pan with the gray paint, giving it 2 coats, and when that's dry, I'll come back and we'll go to our next step. All right, my gray paint has dried and there's 2 coats on here. I did miss a little spot there, but that's okay. I've made a bunch more off camera too so we can kind of play around with some finishes. Now, for the next coat, I'm going to use some of this brushed metal that Plaid sent to me. I find that no matter what metallic paint you use, what metal color, silvers, golds, they tend to be more translucent than the other paints. So I like to put a coat underneath them. So I'm going to put just a really light coat of this on the pan, inside and out. Probably just 1. And then when this is dry, I'll come back and we will talk about how we're going to finish these. So I'm going to let this dry and then I'll be back. All right, so here are some of the loaf pans I made. Most of them I made off camera so that we can do different levels of aging on some of them. So let's take one. Let's take a couple. And I've got some golden sunset paint. You want a yellow ochre type color. Something that's got that kind of browny yellow, really warm color. Paintbrush and some water. And what I want to do is I want to thin this down really thin. I want to make a wash. And I've got a paper towel here. Because what I'm going to do, we're going to make this look like it's an older loaf pan. And by how much you put on and how much you leave on will determine how old and abused this loaf pan looks. So you can put on just a little bit and be sure and get the inside too. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to get this done really well off camera, but you get the idea of what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go through. I'll do another little bit more here on this one. Let's do the inside on this one. A little more water. I want that really runny. You want it really watered down. Because you want it to settle in the corners. This one I'm going to leave more in. I'm not going to wipe it back. This one's going to look really old. And I'll do a few with different levels of yellow in them. I'll take some photos for the blog post. And when this paint is dry, I'll come back and we'll go on to our next step of aging some of them a little bit more. All right, our greasy, grungy yellow wash has dried completely. So now I've got some black paint. This is Black Apple Barrel that Plaid sent me. Just a tiny, tiny drop, and I've still got my water out. It's the same water. It's fine. It doesn't need to be clean. And I'm going to water this down really well. And then we are just going to take a small brush and kind of hit these inside corners. And you could go back with a brown if you wanted to on some of the corners too. And I'm only going to do this on a couple of these, because these are going to be the ones that are really used. And let's go ahead and get just a little bit on just the corners. Very watered down. Use your finger, kind of spread it out. This would be great if you're doing like maybe a yard sale or something in miniature, or you've got stuff up in an attic. Put some of Grandma's old baking pans up there. This would be really cool for that. Or they can just be in the kitchen and be somebody that really bakes a lot and their pans just get stained. But always have tons of water on that black for this, because you don't want that to be full strength. All right, we are going to let this dry, and when this dries, we'll come back and we will put on a clear finish and see how they look. All right, my paints had time to dry, and I love how these look. We're just going to seal them now, and I'm going to use some satin Mod Podge. This is some that Plaid sent me in one of their rushes. Sealing them is probably optional. I just think it'll be better, and I have put things with Mod Podge on them in the oven and had no trouble. If you're worried about that, then wait until you've if you're going to use them to put bread in, like we probably won't these aged ones, but maybe some of the others we might. It's up to you. So I am going to give everybody a coat of satin Mod Podge, and I'm going to let these dry. And when they're dry, we'll come back and we'll take a look at our collection of loaf pans. Be right back. All right, the Mod Podge has dried, and I think it's done a really good job of making these look pretty realistic, as well as sealing our finish on. I think these turned out really cute. Next week we'll be making some bread to go in them, and then we'll be making some things with some of the bread. Something I've been wanting to do for a while and I just hadn't gotten around to. Be sure and check the blog post. I'll be talking more over there about the materials used and my thoughts on doing these and then using them in the oven. So be sure and check the blog post. If you liked the video, be sure and hit the like button. Leave me a comment. What kinds of foods would you like to learn to make for your dollhouse? If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you, hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.